Welcome. Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad we started doing that. I am Audrey Gale Hall, Membership Coordinator here at Emerson Unitarian Universalist Church in Houston, Texas. Our beloved community of faith, reason, and affection welcomes all to grow in mind and spirit as together we build a better world. If you're joining us for the first time this morning, we extend a special welcome to y'all and invite you to fill out our visitor card, which you can find in the pews and in the gathering place, so you can receive more information about Emerson and our activities. And if you're tuning in online, you can find that link in the YouTube chat. We are a church in many places, some of us here in the pews and some of us streaming online from home or wherever we might be. And our world is a different one than it was in early 2020, so our worship services have changed accordingly. People on site are sitting in every other pew with space between families, and we've put offering baskets at the front on either side of me and in the back of the sanctuary. That way you can drop off offerings during the service instead of passing the plates between us. We're also keeping on our masks, except for those of us at the mic, to reduce risk of COVID transmission, especially since we are now inviting everyone to join with your voices in singing the hymns. So this is a reminder to please silence your cell phone, please switch it off for the rest of the service. But after the service, folks in the pews can head out to the courtyard and the playground to chat and maybe even slide on some slides. And we'll also have social time on Zoom, which is a chance for you to gather in smaller groups to discuss the service and what's going on in your lives. Folks online, you can find the social time link in today's e-blast. And now for our prelude. This is Look Up by Joy Olarakun.
Sometimes your life feels like a broken road. The clouds are
Good morning. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, wherever you find yourself on your life's journey, whichever your pronouns, whether you've walked in or rolled in or dialed in, whomever you love, you are welcome here. To this house we come bringing our boldest dreams, seeking here the inspiration and strength to make them be. To this house we come hoping to bury broken dreams, to be sustained through their pain and discover new ones amidst their tears. We come here lonely, isolated from meaningful human contact, searching for warmth and closeness and care, needing to grow beyond plateaus of the commonplace. We seek here challenges and commitments productive of greater wholeness and deeper meanings. We come intense and constructed, hoping for encouragement to shed our pretenses and to be ourselves. Filled with despair and self-doubt, We seek affirmations prodding us to say yes to ourselves and to life. Somehow, always putting happiness ahead of ourselves, we enter this place trusting that what happens here will enable us to make and to accept a little bit of it now, today. Strange place, this house. Here we cry, sing, laugh, hurt, dance, touch, survive, celebrate, grow, search, doubt, hope, rejoice, pray, trust, care, learn, think, wonder, be, become. Yes, this morning to this house we come. At this hour, in small towns and big cities, in single rooms and ornate sanctuaries, many of our sibling Unitarian Universalist congregations are also lighting a flaming chalice. As we light our chalice today, let us remember that we are a part of this great community of faith. May this dancing flame inspire us to fill our lives with the Unitarian Universalist ideals of love, justice, and truth.
For once, it wasn't my keys. So there are some stories that we don't know exactly who told them first. But we think this one is either a Chinese, am I here? Yeah. Chinese or Japanese folktale that's just been told all over. I was talking to a friend last night and she said, hey, my rabbi taught me that story. So it's got several names. The first, parable or the allegory of the long spoons. The other is the difference between heaven and hell. Spoons in hell, who would have thought? So I'm going to need Michelle's help on this one. A woman came upon a temple and asked the monks most diligently, please, please, can you just show me the difference between The monks agreed to her wish, and they put a blindfold on her. And after a few minutes, they invited her to remove the blindfold. She looked out in a banquet hall laid with round tables, each table filled with bowls of delicious food, macaroni and cheese and gumbo and the best buttered peas you've had in your life, and ice cream. Have I mentioned the ice cream? There were so many delicious things upon that table. And yet, the people seated around each table just looked sad. Noticed all they had were long spoons, and try as they might to scoop up the food, they could not get it to their mouths. They were so hungry. It was so pathetic. The woman said, oh, take me away. This is heartbreaking. Please, I've seen enough of this hell. They put the blindfold back on her, told her to sit still a minute, invited her to take the blindfold off. And at first sight, she was in the same room, that banquet hall filled with tables, people sitting around them, all those delicious foods. But these people were happy and chattering, and what was the difference? They were feeding one another. Would you like some chocolate mousse, Michelle? She laughed happily, said, I get it now. In heaven, we learn to feed one another, to care for one another, and know that all of us will have enough. So ends our story. Thank you.
Giving out of what is our own is a transformative act. As a community of faith, we collect an offering not for ourselves or our congregation, but to give to others as a collective action of our community and as a way to live out our shared values. So please give with a generous heart today to support our March Share the Plate recipient, the Rutherford B.H. Yates Museum. And now I want to offer our special guest, Dr. Byron Cobbin, a chance to say some words about the Rutherford B.H. Yates Museum.
Good morning. On behalf of the Rutherford B.H. Yates Museum, we would like to thank the Emerson Church family for their generosity over the many years that we have been in operation. Since 1996, the Rutherford B.H. Yates Museum has led the charge to preserve the legacy of this post-freed slave settlement, the community of Freedmanstown. Through your generosity, your monetary generosity, through your generosity of your time and the generosity of your talents, we have and are preserving 6 home sites and 11 lots. It is going to take more money, more volunteers, more conversation about the legacy that these families left that we'd like to share with the city of Houston and beyond. We'd like for you to keep the conversation of what we're doing going within your own circles, and to challenge those that are attached to your circles to communicate what we're doing in their circles. Again, we'd like to thank you.
Thank you so much, Byron, and thank you, Catherine, both of y'all, for sitting in and speaking to us in our adult religious education session this morning. As always, y'all, 25% of our offering will go to Interfaith Ministries' Meals on Wheels program, feeding Houston's seniors. And as a reminder, we have 4 ways to give. You can text the number on the screen, go to our webpage for online giving, or you can put donations in our offering baskets here on your right and your left, or in the back of the sanctuary. You can also mail a check to the church.
Please find a comfortable place in your seats. Plant your feet firmly on the floor if you can and if you will, so that you might feel more connected to the earth, which nourishes and sustains us all. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so, and take a deep breath in. As together we listen to the words of this meditation, followed by a time of silence. Teach my heart healing words. Show me the words that help rather than harm. Instruct me in the verbs that bring energy, the nouns pointing to the real, the adjectives describing your subtleties. Reveal to me how words can be offered in a way that connects rather than separates, that develops trust and eschews suspicion, that opens the heart and relaxes the mind. As together we enter into the silence. Amen, and blessed be.
In the church I serve, we have a Sunday morning worship leader who welcomes everyone at the start of the service. They give the necessary announcements, including telling the congregation that large print orders of service and assisted living devices are available from the ushers on the best Sundays, which don't happen as often as I wish. The worship leader mistakenly says that assisted living devices are available from the ushers. I am always secretly rooting for this mistake because it makes everyone laugh, and because it would be so excellent if the ushers really had assisted living devices to give out. I would raise my hand for one every time. I know I'm not alone. A lot of us feel like our lives should have come with instructions. Or maybe they did, but we lost the only copy a long time ago. 7 years ago, I left my marriage of over 2 decades. We had 2 young children at home at the time, and during the day, I could mostly live with the weight of my decision. But at night, the voices of my fear and my guilt were relentless. Had I chosen my own happiness over my children's? Would this become a terrible turning point in their lives? The moment when they lost faith in stability, in promises made and kept. I prayed for operating instructions, for some sign we would all get through this. I let them have too much screen time as I juggled ministry and motherhood. I was raggedly determined, driving around in a borrowed truck to collect Craigslist furniture and writing my sermons in the middle of the night. A few months in, an older woman in the congregation visited me. I left my marriage with young kids to raise, she said. I still remember how tired I was. You need to let us help you. I started to protest and she stopped me. We know you are fine, she said, quietly, fiercely, kindly, and you still need to let us help you. Luckily, I realized this was the sign. Kindness offered from someone who has traveled our particular hard road before us is always the sign. So I let them help me. Members of the congregation came with paintbrushes and scrub brushes and donated pots and kitchen utensils, some of which looked suspiciously new. They put together my children's beds and painted the walls of our new apartment. I was undone by their tenderness and healed by it. None of us have a map. We are all just making the way as we go. But we can help each other get through the painful places we know most intimately because we have lived in them. There really are assisted living devices, and they are us. We have each other.
I was traveling west of Buckskin on the way to a cattle run. Cross a little cactus desert under a hot and blistering sun. I was thirsty down to my toenails, so I stopped to rest me on a stump. But I tell you, I just couldn't believe it when I saw a water pump. I took it to be a mirage at first, it'll fool a thirsty friend. Then I saw a note in a baking powder can. This pump is old, the note began, but it works, so give it a try. I put a new sucker washer in, so you may find the leather dry. You've got to prime the pump, you must have faith to believe. You've got to give of yourself, or you're worthy to don't you go drinking first. You just pour it in and pump like mad. Buddy, you'll quench your thirst. You've got to prime the pump, you must have faith to believe. You've got to give of yourself, for you're worthy to receive. Drink all the water you can hold, wash your face, cool your feet. Believe the bottle full for others, make you kindly desert Pete. Well, I found that jar, and I tell you, nothing was ever prettier to my eye. And then I was tempted strong to drink it, 'cause that pump looked mighty dry. But the note went on, have faith, my friend. There's water down below. So I poured in the jar, and I started pumping, and I heard a beautiful sound of water bubbling and splashing up out of that hole in the ground. So I took off my shoes and I drank my fill of that cool, refreshing treat. Thank the Lord and thank that pump and thank old Desert Pete. You've got to run the pump, you must have faith to believe. You've got to love yourself, for you're worthy to receive. Drink all the water you can hold, wash your face, cool your feet. Believe the bottle full for others, make you kindly desert Pete. You've got to run the pump, you must have faith to believe. You've got to give of yourself, for you're worthy to receive. Drink all the water you can hold, wash your face, cool your feet. Believe that water full of others, make you kindly desert Pete. Believe that bottle full of others, thank you kindly desert Pete.
O ye of little faith. So Matthew chapter 6, verse 30 says, in the passage about Jesus telling the disciples not to worry. Do not worry about shelter. Do not worry about food. Do not worry about clothing. For if you have faith in God, your needs will be supplied. In our common everyday use, though, we often talk about, O ye of little faith, when we refer to each other's abilities and have considerable doubt about those abilities. Today, we're going to be exploring a concept that I am calling little faith. Last week, we talked about big faith. We talked about transcendence and faith in God or faith in the universe, faith in whatever it is that is eternal or bigger and greater than all of us as humanity. And we talked about big faith as being another word for trust. Today, I want to talk about little faith. I want to talk about imminence. It can still be faith. It can still be faith on God, but down here on earth, how does that look? Down here on earth, right in our daily lives. What happens when God goes for a stroll in the garden? Or what is that divine spark in each of us? Or where is that faith in humanity? So we can look at this from both a theist perspective and a humanist perspective. So when I talk about theism, I'm definitely talking about the broad sense of that term and can include pantheism and panentheism and all those other theistic belief systems. Or we could talk about a humanist perspective, specifically religious humanism, as opposed to secular humanism. We are part of the Unitarian Universalist Association, and so we are an mostly organized body of faith. Some people have doubts in our organizational abilities, but we are a religious institution, a faith body, and so we are part of a religious humanist movement. Now, you can look up the manifestos if you're not already familiar with them, and they do refer to a more atheistic perspective on humanism, but keep in mind that times they are a-changing, and you now can find groups of theistic humanists and pagan humanists that are also fairly well organized. So if we think about humanism, about faith as being trust, another word for trust, a deep source or deep level of trust, humanism can be thought of as the faith in each other, the faith in all of humanity to create a better world. That is part of our purpose statement, that this beloved community is part of creating the greater beloved community, creating a better world, and we rely on humans to do that. We are faith in action. Much like the spoon story about heaven and hell. Heaven is when we humans help each other, when we feed each other. Whether that is a literal feeding each other of food or metaphorical, spiritual nourishment, as we encourage each other to grow in our beliefs and search for that truth and meaning. The trouble is there are so many things out there that can disrupt or deter or chip away at our faith, our little faith in other humans, that can cause us to doubt. We are so connected, much more now than ever in any other period of time of human history. There is no insulation. We hear news from around the world almost instantaneously, and it is heavy. It is heavy. I'll name a few things, but there are so many more I could name. Out there in the world, the war in Ukraine, the invasion by Russia is heavy in our hearts. Climate change is heavy in our hearts. Those are big things. There are also little things that cumulatively help to weigh us down. Articles and social media posts about egregious behavior by employers and neighbors and others. Right here in Texas, we are experiencing censorship in the school libraries. They're pulling anti-racist books out of libraries. They're pulling GLBTQ affirming books out of school libraries. The governor has directed Child Protective Services to investigate trans families for possible child abuse for providing medically appropriate gender-affirming care. The state district attorney is accusing Austin schools of breaking state law by holding Pride Week. Right now, the brunt of it is on trans people, but it is targeted at all of the GLBTQ family as well. and there are major, major issues with human trafficking right here in Texas. So many things, so many burdens, so heavy. And even right in Emerson Unitarian Universalist Church, even in this congregation, sometimes we break faith with one another. We are a covenantal faith. Covenants get broken, and then we call each other back to covenant, back to right relationship. We have a big covenant that holds all of us in the Unitarian Universalist Association together throughout all of our congregations. Those are in the form of our 7 principles. We covenant to affirm and promote the inherent dignity of every person, and on and on. The fact that covenants get broken was true of biblical covenants. There are multiple covenants made in the Bible and broken in the Bible. And it is true of those covenants that we make with each other. It can happen with the board covenant or the transition team covenant or any of the other covenants you have made in your smaller working groups. The important thing is to acknowledge that this happens, right? This is normal. We are humans. We are imperfect. We're working on our dismantling white supremacy by letting go of that concept of having to be perfect all the time, right? We have to embrace our imperfection. Sometimes it happens. I can see that I have hurt another person, even though I don't understand how or why or what it is that I did. Sometimes I experience micro or even macro aggressions. Sometimes I neglect to recognize another's contribution or forget to practice gratitude. Sometimes I feel that I am not appreciated enough. Sometimes I feel like I am not as welcoming as I could be. Sometimes I forget that the spiritual needs of other members or visitors or generations are different than my own. Sometimes I allow my own anxiety to negatively impact another person's experience. These are things that we all do, myself included. Clergy are no more perfect than the rest of you. And they happen in communities of all kinds. They happen in congregations everywhere. They happen in this congregation. They happen in our families. So, given this, what do we do? What can we do when our faith in each other is broken or even just a little bit dented? This happened to me recently. I had my trike stolen last week, which is a primary way for me to get around my apartment community. So it was a big loss. So what do we need to do? We need to demonstrate faith. I think we need to demonstrate faith. We need to demonstrate that others can find faith in us, that we are trustworthy, and we need to trust others. So if I am going to demonstrate that others can find faith in me, then I need to make the first move. I need to act in kindness. I need to feed you first with that long spoon, whether it is food or spiritual nourishment. I need to show vulnerability. I need to show that I'm not perfect, that I make mistakes, that I can get hurt too. I need to share my heart my fears, my dreams, my wonderings, my questions, my beliefs, my values first, if I expect anyone else to do so with me. That is the purpose of coming in together in religious community. We have each other. One of the things that breaks my heart so often is when I'm in a church setting and someone apologizes for crying. That's what we're here for, to witness each other's tears. There's no shame in sharing our feelings, no shame in being vulnerable. If we build a trusting and trustworthy community, a beloved community, we can do that here. And whatever we learn to do here is what we can bring out into the wider world. So we need to do the hard work of calling ourselves and each other back to right relationship. We need to do the hard work of trusting appropriately in the goodness of others. People like Desert Pete, who have left that water out for us. We need to believe, to trust, to have faith that there is enough water in that jar to pour in the pump, that it will prime it, and then we will be fed isn't the right word. I'm losing the word. Our thirst will be quenched, and then our thirst will be quenched. Just like the passage in Matthew, do not worry, have faith. Have faith in whatever is bigger than us, in that big faith, but also have little faith, that little faith in each other, in our fellow humans. And then we need to do the same for others. That's a key piece of this, right? At the end, it depends on every person who comes to that pump, not just not drinking the water, but using it to prime the pump, but then also refilling the water so the next person who comes will also have their thirst quenched. And we can also, when we feel like our faith in others, our faith in all of humanity is broken or even a little dented, we can respond by acting. Sometimes those ways are really big ways of responding and acting. Sometimes they're little ways. I have a friend. Her name is Debbie. She lives in the apartment community where I am, and I got to meet her and make friends with her because we were able to be outside during COVID, and knowing that I'm new here and didn't know anyone when we moved. And she got really discouraged, really fed up with our fellow neighbors at our community, because all of a sudden we noticed that there was a lot of dog owners who had been walking their dogs and not cleaning up after them, despite the many, many pet stations and bags and trash cans that are everywhere and available for use. It feels a little weird to say this from the pulpit, but there was dog poop everywhere. And emails didn't work from the office reminding people to pick up, and calling the office to complain didn't work. People were still doing it. And so one day she was so fed up with our neighbors, she went to the store, the Ace Hardware, and bought a set of 100 bright pink flags and proceeded to stick them in the ground near every pile of dog poop. The first time she did this, she set out 45 flags. And guess what? It worked. She is now known as the Poop Lady. little action, but it is cleaning up our community. It is preventing disease. Kids running around in bare feet need to be protected from the parasites that can be transmitted that way. It was important, and it made a difference. And she felt good for having taken this little action. And I think that for her, and definitely for me, I had some of that faith in my neighbors restored because the action worked, and they started being more responsible pet owners. There are other little actions you can take. Today, after the service, Katie is going to be, she moved. She's out in the pews now. Katie is going to be leading us in a ladybug release at a garden, the Pocket Prairie, that was created in part to help feed butterflies that are endangered, the monarch butterflies. And we're going to help make that garden be more healthy and therefore help the butterflies who would come to it, and therefore help a little bit with climate change, a little action. It's also fun. Today you can also go out the doors and grab a carton of plastic eggs and stuff them for candy and treats for our little ones to have an Easter egg hunt. Little actions, but they make a difference. They are kind. On Thursday, if you want, you can go to an online training that is about speaking up for trans lives. It is meant for all of you cisgender people out there who are hoping to learn how to become a good ally to trans folks. You can engage in hacktivism. Have you all heard about this? There are people throughout the US that are engaging in hacktivism where they are trying to bring down Russian websites in order to help the Ukrainian war. So a few of us are probably going to head to the Ukraine and fight. But this is a way, some of us might, but this is a way in which Ukrainians were leading this. They began this, actually, so we would be following in their lead. You can send money to all sorts of causes that we support, not with a charity mindset, but as a way of supporting justice, supporting the truth. Doing things like donating to the Hayes Museum in all their efforts. And in all the ways, so many, many ways you already do, the stories that you have shared with me about showing up for your fellow congregational members and others after the hurricane and helping to clean up each other's houses. About the ways in which you show up after memorial services or celebrations of life, bringing food for everyone to have an extra long time to get some social support and hear more stories about their loved one who had recently died. So many, many things you already do. So we, all of us, our little faith in action. What we do matters. What we do matters. In a world that is often bruised and hurting, I hereby commission you, each and every one of you, to be a restorer of faith. You are restorers of faith. Now, what are you going to go out and do? Amen, and blessed be. Let us rise either in body or spirit together as we sing our closing hymn, Shall We Gather at the River? Go out into this bruised and hurting world, O ye of little faith, and piece by piece by piece, though your ways may feel small, be a restorer of faith. Amen, and blessed be.